Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Kris. Sorry about that. Okay. We're going back. I wasn't ready, sir. This is images with disturbing backstories from a channel I just saw, The Void. See me click that thumbs up? If you could do the same for me, that helps out tremendously and I appreciate it. You can subscribe to the channel and you can donate through the thanks button, which you could request a video and your name will be sponsoring that video. This was not a request, this was nothing. I just saw it. I just did another video about final images or something like that. And so this was one of the ones that didn't pop up on the screen but was on the side. So we're doing it. We're going to break it down in two videos. We're going to stop right there. And I'm not going to cheat. So, I'm not going to talk a whole lot. What? Sorry, okay, it's just a shadow. My fault.
Have you ever looked at a seemingly innocent image and felt an inexplicable sense of unease? What if I told you that behind some of the most mundane photos lies a disturbing truth, a story so chilling it defies belief? Today, we begin on a journey through history, uncovering the dark and unsettling backstories behind some of the most obscure images ever captured. We'll explore photos that reveal tragic moments, mysterious disappearances, and unexpected horrors that lurk beneath the surface. Some images may seem harmless at first, but once you know their backstories, you'll never see them the same way again. So, prepare yourself for a journey into some of the worst-kept secrets as we take a look into images with disturbing backstories.
Is this Adam Walsh? Is this John Walsh of America's Most Wanted? Is this dealing with his son? Oh, I don't know much about this. I mean, I know the outcome, but I don't know much about it leading up to it. Oh.
What do you see when you look at this image? You might think it's a grainy photograph of a late evening sky between trees, or perhaps even a Rorschach test, the ink blot assessment used for psychological interpretation. The truth, however, is much, much darker. On the afternoon of July 27, 1989, Adam Walsh, a 6-year-old from Indian River County, Florida, United States, was shopping with his mother, Reve Drew Walsh, at a local mall in Hollywood, Florida. They went into Sears, a chain American department store, as Reve wanted to inquire about an item on sale. Adam was left at a kiosk with an Atari 2600 video game console on display, where he and other kids were taking turns playing with the console. Reve finished her shopping not long after, at around 12:15 p.m., and returned to find that Adam, as well as the other boys, had disappeared. A store manager informed her that the kids had argued over whose turn it was for the console, resulting in a security guard instructing the boys to leave the store. The security guard had asked the older boys if their parents were in the store, and they said that they weren't. Adam said nothing, with the officer assuming he was friends with the older boys, leaving Adam to join them outside. Reve, now beginning to worry, would page Adam and continue to look for him throughout the store, but she simply couldn't find him. After more than 90 minutes of searching, and her attempts at paging failed to locate Adam, Reve called the Hollywood police at 1:55 p.m. After some investigating, local police concluded that Adam was abducted by Otis Toole, an American serial killer, who lured Adam into his 1971 Cadillac sedan with promises of toys and candy. He then proceeded to drive north on Interstate 95 towards his home in Jacksonville, Florida. Adam, now realizing the mistake he had made, began to panic as Otis drove further away. In an attempt to stop Adam's frantic behaviour, Otis would then knock Adam out unconscious as he drove further away to a deserted service road in northwest St. Lucie County. Upon arriving, he realised Adam was still breathing. He then took Adam's life via suffocation, dragged him out of his car, and decapitated him with a machete. He then threw Adam's head onto the rear floorboard of the car before disposing of the body. On August 10th, exactly 2 weeks after Adam's disappearance, a severed head would be found in a drainage canal near Vero Beach, about 210 kilometres or 130 miles from where he was originally abducted. Adam's mother and the rest of his family would continue their search efforts to try and find Adam and return him home, still believing that Adam was somewhere out there, alive. These remains, however, would soon after be identified as Adam's. The coroner ruled the cause of Adam's death was asphyxiation, suggesting that Adam's life had been taken away several days before the discovery of his remains. The rest of his body, unfortunately, was never recovered. The head itself would be kept in the morgue until the case's closure in 2008. Now, at this point, I'm sure you're wondering, what does the image shown at the beginning have to do with all of this? Well, Joe Matthews, a former Miami Beach homicide detective, published a book titled Bringing Adam Home in 2001. In this book, Joe details evidence that was either discovered by himself or was overlooked by the police department or never considered. One such piece of evidence was this image, and this image shows the carpet inside of the rear floorboard of the car. And if you look close enough, you can almost see a face. Can't see it? What about now? This image was one of 98.
I'm guessing that's from spraying the luminol on there. When this story's over, if they don't get into it, I'll tell a little bit more detail about some stuff. Not like breaking news.
Photos taken by Florida Department of Law Enforcement investigators of Otis's Cadillac. The fluorescent pale blue colour you see is luminol, a water-based agent capable of detecting blood that has been diluted up to 10,000 times. At the time of this atrocity, DNA technology didn't exist to determine if the blood found on the rear floorboard of his car matched Adam's. The technology now exists, but the carpet was somehow misplaced while in the custody of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Investigators also somehow managed to neglect to lift blood from the machete when discovered. So annoyingly, although we can definitely confirm that this image does show blood across the carpet floorboard and an imprint of what appears to be a face, we'll never be able to truly confirm it was in fact Adam. Otis had twice confessed to taking the life of Adam, but later recanted these statements. He had claimed responsibilities for hundreds of attacks, but police believed most of his confessions were simply untrue. It wasn't until on his deathbed in prison that he confessed to his niece that he did in fact take the life of Adam Walsh. Otis died in prison of cirrhosis in 1996 at the age of 49. He was serving 5 life sentences for killings unrelated to Adam's death. Police announced on December 16, 2008, that Adam's case was closed, stating they were satisfied that Otis was in fact the killer. The only remains of Adam, his head, were stored in a morgue as part of the evidence throughout the ongoing investigation, but were returned to his family following the closure of the case, so that they could finally give Adam a proper burial. The kidnapping and death of Adam Walsh is incredibly sad, with the parents understandably frustrated and disappointed by the police department's handling of the case. Firstly, they argue the cops didn't take the missing persons case seriously enough, and once it turned into a potential killing investigation, they somehow misplaced crucial pieces of evidence that could have confirmed that this was in fact Adam's blood. Otis's decisions to confess, then later recant his confession, did nothing to help the investigation. But with the case now closed, we can only hope that Adam's parents can find some form of closure from such an awful tragedy.
Okay. So, for the people who don't know, Adam Walsh's father is John Walsh. John Walsh hosted a TV show. It's back on now, and I always forget about it. It's on Saturday nights. It's called America's Most Wanted. He is an American television presenter, criminologist, victims' rights advocate, and host-creator of America's Most Wanted. He is known for his anti-crime activism, with which he became involved following the murder of his son Adam in 1981. In 2008, deceased serial killer Otis Toole was officially named as his killer. John Walsh turned this tragedy into a goal with his with the loss of his son in 81, in the late 80s up to the 90s, and then it's maybe in the 2000s, and now it's back. America's Most Wanted Saturday nights. He put out on TV people who had committed crimes and they were running from the authorities, and they captured. Let me check. Let me pause real fast. Okay, let me check to make sure I'm back to recording. Okay, so quick check. It ran for 28. It was 28 seasons. I don't know if this season now is current. Oh yeah, it is 2021 to now. But they've ran 1,101 episodes, and they've captured 1,192 people who have been on that show. So he's turned the tragedy of losing his son into making sure that other people, in a way, get the closure that he didn't have at the time by having those people arrested and charged for those murders. So this is like... John Walsh should be commended for what he's done, because he turned tragedy into a springboard to make sure that other people don't suffer the unknown. And I wish he would have mentioned that. He probably didn't know, but I wish he would have mentioned it, because John Walsh does deserve that respect. I think if you talk about his son, you should talk about the accolades that he's done for victims and their families. Okay.
You might have come across this next image either through school, a newspaper, or by simply browsing the internet. The photograph depicts a mother, Lucille Chalifou, hiding her head, as her 4 children sit huddled and confused beneath a sign that reads, "4 children for sale. Inquire within." First published on August the 5th, 1948, by the Vidette Messenger of Valparaiso, Indiana, the image was accompanied by a caption stating, "A big for sale sign in a Chicago yard mutely tells the tragic story of Mr. and Mrs. Ray Chalifou, who face eviction from their apartment. With no place to turn, the jobless coal truck driver and his wife decide to sell their 4 children. Mrs. Lucille Chalifou turns her head from the camera above while her children stare wonderingly. On the top step are Lana, 6, and Ray, 5. Below are Milton, 4, and Sue Ellen, 2. The legitimacy of the image was questioned, including by family members of the Chalifou family. However, the story behind it is completely true. The image was later republished in papers all over the country, and a few days later, the Chicago Heights Star reported families opening their homes to the children, with job offers and offers of financial support making their way to the family. Unfortunately, none of this seemed to be enough. All of the children in the photo, including the child Lucille was pregnant with at the time, were sold. But the question remains, what happened to these children? The youngest of the children for sale, David, with whom Lucille was pregnant with when the photo was taken, was legally adopted by Harry and Luella McDaniel, who had official custody of him in July of 1950. David's life was an improvement to his previous home, being described as more stable and safer, yet much stricter. He described himself as a rebellious teen, eventually running away from home at the age of 16, before spending the next 20 years of his life serving in the military. Following his service, David continued working as a truck driver. Rayanne, unfortunately, had a much worse upbringing. She claimed that her mother sold her for $2 so that she could have bingo money. This money was given to Lucille by John and Ruth Zoetterman, the adoptees. They had originally only planned to purchase Rayanne, but noticed Milton crying nearby, and decided to take him too. The family would later change Rayanne's name to Beverly, and Milton's name to Kenneth. Upon arriving home, they soon realized that they had unfortunately been purchased by horrible people. Rayanne stated, "They used to chain us up all the time. When I was a little child, we were field workers." Milton, who faced beatings, starvation, and abuse, began to become increasingly violent as he grew older, with a judge deeming him to be a menace to society, forcing him to spend a number of years in a mental hospital. Rayanne too faced issues, claiming that in her late teens she was kidnapped, R-worded, and got pregnant. She was then sent to Michigan to a home for unwed mothers, and following the birth of the child, returned to her hometown, with the baby being taken from her and later adopted. At the age of 17, she left her adopted home and never looked back. Milton and Rayanne would later connect as adults. Unfortunately, their sister Lana passed away in 1998 due to cancer, so they never saw her again. They were, however, able to reconnect with Sue after discovering she grew up not too far from their original home. By the time the siblings were reconnected in 2013, Sue was unfortunately suffering from late stages of lung disease and found it difficult to speak. It really is a tragic story, but it gets even sadder when it was discovered that Lucille would later on remarry, have 4 more children, and would keep them. The reasoning for this is, unfortunately, unknown. She never truly apologized to her children that she had sold, and passed away on the 1st of May, 1992, aged 68. The children, now much older and reflecting on their mother's decision to sell them, have mixed feelings about her decision to do so. Rayanne, who was sold for $2 for bingo money, claimed their lives were simply tragic for some years after being sold. David, who hadn't even been born during the photo, harbours the least resentment, saying, "She never apologised. Back then, it was survival. Who are we to judge? We're all human beings. We all make mistakes. She could have been thinking about the children, didn't want them to die." Sue, on the other hand, thought differently, simply stating, "She needs to be in hell burning." This image is a historically depressing one, as it shows how desperate some families were during the 1940s. 1945 marked the end of World War II, with some families taking years to recover from the effects of war, and this family was unfortunately just one example. Her decision to sell her children, although incredibly unfortunate, could have, and I do say this lightly, been done for the benefit of her children. But this wasn't the case. Her receiving job offers and financial support from people around the States fell flat, and her decision to sell one of her children for bingo money is just callous. I'm really glad some of her children have been able to reconnect, but I do feel sorry for Lana, who, in the end, was never able to reconnect with her siblings, and passed never finding out what truly happened to them.
We're going to go ahead and end this video here. We'll be back with the final 2. Yeah, I mean, if you're offered all that financial help people are willing to help with the kids, and you do it anyways, and you sell one kid for $2 for bingo money. Yeah, it wasn't about you needing financial help. I don't know what your issue was. She ended up giving away 5 kids, but then had another 4, and she kept them. Yeah, I don't know what to say. It's terrible. I don't know. All right, well, we're going to end this. This is part 1. We'll be back with part 2. So until then, have a good day. Have a good night.